legislature's back in order. Madam Vice Speaker, did you want to put on the record the difference between an economic impact statement and a fiscal note?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. The fiscal note is required for the legislature's review of bills and to determine fiscal impact, and primarily to the government of Guam, fiscal impact of any bill. And that there is a section of Title II which details what should be included in a fiscal note, rather. And for the AAA, there's a very detailed list of what is required in an economic impact statement, which includes effect upon the people and the economy of Guam, financial impact to direct corporate entities directly affected, increase or decrease in prices, availability of particular jobs, increase or decrease in cost of doing business, and largely the impacts to the community of proposed rules and regulations. Now, so that is the economic impact statement that is required when rules and regulations are proposed that have an impact over $500,000. For rules and regulations with an impact less than $500,000, they only require a cost impact assessment, an assessment, not an impact statement. An assessment is not thoroughly defined in this statute, but I believe it to be a shorter version of an impact statement, and just kind of a brief summary review of that type of information, which the agencies are actually supposed to be doing in order to get to the conclusion of whether these things have an impact over 500,000 or not. So it's my intention that this has very little impact, but it really just requires them to put it more formally in writing for us to look at. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. Any other senator wish to be heard on Bill 102? On Bill 102. You're invited to close if you wish. On the motion to send the bill down to voting file. Thank you. Bill 87. Senator Snogstein.
Mr. Speaker, Bill number 87, that's 34, as amended by the Committee of the Whole and further substituted by the Committee on Appropriation and Adjudication, introduced by myself, co-sponsored by Senator Dennis Rodriguez. An act to transfer $430,000 from the Capital District Fund.
On the motion to place it on the second reading file.
Motion to place the second reading, I'm sorry.
No objection. Wait.
Mr. Speaker, it says that it's substituted by the committee, but is there a committee report? Because I'm not able to locate that, and so I'm questioning whether this is in order.
Let me just take a quick recess.
Members, we are back in session. Speaker Cruz, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise as the chairman of the Committee on Appropriations. If the members will remember, we had a session where we discussed Bill 87. And at that session, Bill 87 was sent back to the Committee on Appropriations. What the Committee on Appropriations did in the substitute version was include all of the amendments that were made on the floor, and the committee made one other amendment. In the interim between the day that it was sent back to committee and the day that we reported it with a committee report to COR last Wednesday, we received 3 correspondence from the chairman of the board. The committee report that went to the first session was everything that had been discussed in the hearings that we conducted. I think just about every single member was there for the hearing on Bill 87. In the revised or the substituted committee report, all we added was the 3 letters that were sent by the chairman of the board. One, asking for us to please move forward with Bill 87, as is. Then we got a subsequent letter, please disregard the earlier request to vote on the bill with it going to just Simon Sanchez, and advising us that they had received $1.5 million from the governor to address Simon Sanchez, and the chairman of the board then wanted the bill to read to all Guam Department of Education with some flexibility, and I use air quotes because that's what came from them. They wanted the flexibility of being able to use it for other schools. It's not the only one that needs to be repaired. I think at the public hearing it was made clear that there's some major repairs that are necessary up at GW with the asbestos and some other things. They want the GDOE, the Board of Education, Guam Educational Policy Board chairman, wanted flexibility. So the Committee on Appropriations substituted it, and this was the only amendment we added that was not made by the body on the floor. We changed it from Simon Sanchez to Guam Department of Education. We transmitted pursuant to core rules by 8 a.m. that morning. At 11:30 that last Wednesday, we received the 3rd message from the board chairman. Disregard the last one. Please make it specific to Simon Sanchez. It was already before core, and we weren't going to touch it. The committee report and the substituted version was in core. The core chair at that time determined that the substituted version, having the $430,000 go to GDOE as opposed to specifically Simon Sanchez, was a significant difference from the bill originally heard. And at core before core last week, he returned it to the committee. You will all recall during the Committee on Rules meeting last Thursday, I asked, do I make a motion for reconsideration by the chair, or do I object to the decision of the chair? It was determined that it should be an objection of the committee of the chair. We voted, and it came out a 5-5 split in court. There was one senator missing who was absent. With a 5-5 split, 87 was not put on the agenda for this week. When we convened session on Monday, the good sponsor rose and asked that, notwithstanding the House rules, that he move to place 87 on the session agenda. It was approved, and it is now on the session agenda. The original committee report stands, and that's the one you'll find online. CORE did not know how to put up the new committee report with the 3 letters because it was not approved by CORE. And so committee reports that are not approved by CORE are not uploaded onto the website. So this is the catch-22 that we find ourselves in, and the chair, the good sponsor, and I just wanted to make it clear that that's what happened with this. The MIS is precluded from uploading the new committee report with the 3 letters because it was not accepted at CORE last week. But that's where we stand. So the good sponsor having made the motion notwithstanding, it would seem to me that, and the body having approved it, then it is properly on the floor. There was a committee report and a hearing that was conducted. There was a substitution, and the substitution is Guam Department of Education instead of Simon Sanchez. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Cruz.
Sorry. I have the committee report here, and I can ask that it be uploaded, but I don't know how to be able to get past the prohibition of putting it up without approval by CORE.
Thank you, Speaker Cruz. Vice Speaker Chalahi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, after that explanation, I'm very curious as to what's contained in the committee report because we haven't seen the letters. I'd like to read those letters. I'm wondering if this bill should be, instead of substituted by the committee, substituted on the floor. I myself had the same situation several months ago with committee report that could not be uploaded, and so I understand, but I was also there at the Committee on Rules meeting, and I understand that it was the ruling of the chairperson that this bill was materially different, and that was the reason why it was not. So I guess I'm going to ask, I had risen to just that point of order, whether it's supposed to have a committee report before we discuss it, and secondly, yeah, I think that was the reason why there is not a committee report, is because he had ruled it to be materially different. In any event, if we are going to move forward with this bill, I think we're pretty much in this, with the exception of the 3 letters from DOE, we're in the same situation with regards to the source of funding, and I would like to, before any of this money is moved out of this fund, this is a very special fund that we are able to go into Committee of the Whole and really determine for sure that this fund is something that we want to deplete. So that's just my response. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. Senator Uggan, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I certainly appreciate the presentation by Speaker Cruz in regards to why it's not uploaded. But I want to take us to when this bill, as being proposed, was added to the agenda, which was at the commencement of this session timeline. To me, anything that is added to the agenda should automatically, the effort should kick in automatically, that whoever is responsible for uploading committee reports, that committee report should have immediately been uploaded, because it's the decision of this body collectively, not a particular committee and their membership, but this body collectively added it to the agenda. And I believe it's only prudent that we allow our people to be able to review any additional documents that are readily available by virtue of the second public hearing that was conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudications. So, Madam Speaker, I certainly I want to share that perspective, so that in the future, should any legislation be added to the legislative agenda for session, that the process immediately kick in to allow for that legislation as well as the committee reports to be uploaded, so that our people have that opportunity to be able to review not only the most current version, amended version by the sponsor of the committee, but also the attached documents in the committee report. But, Madam Speaker, I believe that the request by the Vice Speaker is automatic in the standing rules, if I'm not mistaken, that if in fact there's an appropriation measure, that we automatically break into the committee on the whole. So I think that that goes without saying, so I would like to ask your consideration on that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Uggan. On the main motion, would any other senator wish to speak? On Bill 97. On Bill 87.
Just a point of order, Madam Speaker. I guess the question that I have is, was there a request or a motion to move into the committee to whole? Before we speak on this, if that motion is before us, then we can speak to this bill, this legislation, during the committee of the whole. So I believe that needs to be resolved.
Vice Speaker Terlahi, was that a motion to move to the committee on the whole?
Yeah, not yet. I was still waiting for a ruling, I guess, on whether this is properly, we are able to consider this without a committee report. I would assume that, as the previous speaker said, that the going into committee of the whole would be automatic once we are into the debate on the bill.
The opinion of the chair that the bill is in order, since we have adopted it onto the session agenda. And so, Senator Espeland, I believe you still have the floor.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I believe that there are two issues right now before this body. The first issue is, I believe, whether or not the letters that the speaker referred to, and basically which could comprise of the committee report on this new version of the bill, whether that should be made available online and to all the members here. And then the second issue, again, comes the issue of the going into the committee of a whole. So I believe there needs to be some kind of a determination, and I'm not against it, of whether or not the committee report should be made available to all of us before we can speak to this bill.
Thank you, Senator Espeland. The time is now 11:40 a.m. We'll recess for lunch and make that determination, and we can also, Speaker Cruz?
Can we just, following on Senator Uggan, can we just order that the revised committee report be uploaded?
Yes,
I think that's
it's
the request of the
ruling of the chair to have the full committee report to include the 3 letters be uploaded to the legislature's website, but we'll also recess for lunch so that we give the opportunity for the public to review those documents. Senator Uggan.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me. I understand that there's also another piece of legislation that has gone through a similar process. So can I just suggest, Madam Speaker, that that particular instruction apply to any and all pieces of legislation that has been added to the agenda, so that at least our people would be able to. But first and foremost, this would be a priority.
Madam Speaker, I would ask that we recess and that we have council research these things, because I think there's some significant departures from our standing rules or potential. I just want to be sure if we could do that.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Senator Atta, you are recognized.
But to the question of going into a committee of the whole, has that been settled? Because if we are, then we need to give some time to DOE to come down.
It's my understanding that no motion to move into the committee of the whole has been made at this time. The legislature will recess until 2 p.m.